Hey there, it's Pastor Tabitha Purple. We are doing our daily tips for parents. Today I want to talk to you about a form of torture, a really important form of torture that children use in order to break their parents down. It's a tactic, I think. I think it's one of those times when children have deliberately decided that their parents are clearly too happy and too connected. So one way to destroy them is to use this torture method in order to gain the upper hand on their parents and gain gain some advantage in some ways. And this torture technique that I'd like to talk to you about is sleep deprivation. So I have three very different children. As many of you know, I'm the mother of autistic children also, and we have been through our ups and downs with sleep deprivation. Our first child did 20-minute cycles when he was born. Yes, you heard correctly. He only ever slept for 20 minutes, and then he was wide awake, raring to go, often with the need to be fed. There turned out there was some physiological reasons why he was like that. Eventually we found out that he did not know that at night you were supposed to sleep and in the day you were allowed to be awake. He did not discover until quite late that his mother is not functional for other humans before 7 a.m. While she is an early bird and enjoys the sunshine and the birds and likes being out, she likes alone time before then. We also discovered that he had reflux as a baby and so was really constantly hungry. Although he was eating and growing, he was getting a lot of breast milk. We can do breastfeeding stories another time. He actually had reflux and so was constantly feeling hungry because not everything was settling in, and he had a big appetite. We also discovered that he needed real structure. He needed to have a real structure put in place or else he did not cope very well, and that has been his guide for the rest of his life. So that was number one. Number two, lulled us into a false sense of security. So for the first 6 months of his life, he decided that sleep was wonderful, and he was what you would describe as a typical baby. He slept. He slept as a defense mechanism, though, against his brother, we feel. His brother was, a year older, a little bit more robust, run around quite a lot, and was quite happy that he had a new baby to play with. Literally would sit on the baby, so we had to place him high. Actually, we had to use height as a defense and secure him in boxes high up so that he could not be moved or sat on. And so he enjoyed sleep as a defense mechanism against his brother, we think. But he liked sleep for 6 months, and he woke up after 6 months and decided that it was no longer necessary that he slept. It was as if in the first 6 months of his life he had gained all the sleep he needed for the rest of his life, and then he decided no. And he was awake, and we had to put learning things in his room for him. We had to turn ourselves inside out to really fill his brain, because what it turned out was that he needed a lot of stimulation. He needed a lot of intellectual kind of guides, just input, and so he really was just awake trying to gain information. So we gave him information, and that allowed us some peace. He didn't sleep, but at least allowed us to sleep. And he too learnt, like his brother, that his mother before 7 o'clock is not a fan of humans. She doesn't mind watching her morning news and having a drink, but this torture method does not work very well. And so, yes, we had that. And within 2 years of their life, we had got good sleeping rhythms for the children. Not that they would always sleep, you understand, but they understood that between the hours of 7 and 7 in the evening, it was quiet sleeping time. Your parents were not to be disturbed. You could lie in your bed and you can sing a song, preferably quietly, because you didn't want to disturb your sibling. And then a couple of years ago, we were blessed with our current torture technique person. Some would call her a terrorist of sleep. I obviously would not call her that. And she had, from birth, decided that sleep, while lovely, she did enjoy sleep, could only be done under certain circumstances. And she has not slept at night properly since she was born. And so while I have sleep trained my children, who had varying needs, as you can hear, and I have sleep trained my nephews, and I have sleep trained friends' children, and I have I hope never been judgmental about other people's sleep training issues. This little Joy has decided that sleep is not necessary for her parents. It's not a part of their life. And what she was doing, we discovered, because we had this idea that she was only getting up between the hours of 1 and 4, but we kept a sleep diary for 2 weeks. I advocate a sleep diary. It will help you to center yourself, because sleep is so important that if you are losing it constantly, you really don't remember where you are in life. So we kept a sleep diary for 2 weeks, which was very revealing, because we realized then she was not sleeping at all. She would sleep for maybe an hour. That was more than the first one did, I guess. He slept for 20 minutes, so she did an hour, which was good. And then she would be up, and she would be up every hour. She would require input, so we would have to settle her. She would cry. She'd have night terrors. She would have nightmares, and there is a difference between night terrors and nightmares, and she had both. She would wake up and visibly look like she remembered something, and she would be talking about it. And sometimes she'd just wake up terrified, not with no recollection, but really clearly needing to be reassured and put down again. And I used every tip and trick in the book. We've done this before. There's nothing unusual about sleep training. So we had, you go in, you don't speak, you don't, do the things, you just settle, and then you walk out. So we did that very consistently, because I don't really, after 7 o'clock in the evening, my children know they don't need me. I have work to do, so I can't spend lots of time with them in that point. They get all their hugs and kisses in the daytime, please. That may sound cold and callous to some of you, but okay, that's up to you. You can be judgmental in your space. So we did that. We ensured that day the routine was very set. She knew that she had dinner and bath and story and bed and prayer time, and very consistent with the time. It may be within an hour, but very consistent. Most nights she was in bed 7 o'clock on the dot, ready and down. Sometimes she, so we did the consistency. We did make sure the lighting was correct. That's another thing you have to do, is make sure lighting is correct. And we tried to ensure that she was separated. One of the things that really overwhelmed us was the fact that we were trying to sleep train a child while there's other people trying to sleep in close proximity. When we were sleep training the other two, of course, that wasn't the case, because the first one, there's no other children to disturb. So when he's up and fussing and doing whatever, singing and dancing, and it makes no difference, he'll get it. He'll get the point. But when you're sleep training the third one, and there are two children who have sleep issues and they are sleeping, you don't want to disturb their routine, so you have to find creative ways of keeping the child quiet while not trying to engage overly, not trying to overstimulate, not trying to do things that encourage waking up. But she would inevitably need to pee, need to go to the toilet. She's now potty trained. She would inevitably need a drink, because if you pee you need a drink. If she needs something to eat because she was very hungry, etc, 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 and the list would go on. And for this has been going 2+ years now, so we've been doing this a while, and normally you would have some success. What the success was in our case was that she understood that in the nighttime there was a nighttime, and that other members of the family were asleep in that time. She, however, doesn't feel that rule applies to her. So we've been to specialists, of course, pediatricians, sleep specialists, etc, etc. The prescription came for melatonin. We did some research. Yes, melatonin is safe. It's naturally produced within the body. It should work for her. And it has been a lifesaver, I will be honest. It has meant that when she goes to sleep, she goes to sleep, which she was not doing. She could be up for 2 hours, and you could be going up and down, and that just was not helpful. And so, yes, it has been a challenge. And sleep torture and sleep deprivation is painful. It is dangerous for the adults, because if you are not sleeping, it means that you are not necessarily functioning properly. Your reflex times can be very delayed. It means that your emotional responses can be exaggerated, shall we say. And it means that you can really be struggling. And so for us, it was really important to get this under the control. We live in a foreign country, so of course having family by who could help maybe take the boys for a week or two while we sleep train her, or take her and sleep train her while we have the boys in their regular routine, which is very important to us as a family. It was not possible. So we have had to find ways of doing that in this environment. And basically what I want to say is I'm just encouraging you to keep a sleep diary. This really helped us to solidify the necessity of being intentional with our sleeping patterns. So there are two of us, it's my husband and I raising our children, and we can take turns in sleeping. So there are times when he's on for a week and then I'm on, or sometimes it's been so bad that, we do one night off, one night on. But if you don't know how bad it is, if you haven't recorded it, it can be really, you don't understand why you're tired, you don't understand why you're angry or frustrated, if you haven't really noticed that you've been terrorized, that you have had a form of torture applied to you, and that your life is not going the way you would like it to go. And in which case, I really just advocate for you, really keep a sleep diary, keep a record. I know it's hard because you're tired, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you just can't function, you're up for the millionth time, and it's, why is this happening to me? But if you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, you've been doing this for a while, it's been hurting your body, it is not nice, and you need to really get it, not only for the sake of the child who will be frayed, who will eventually begin to feel the effects of this, but for yourself. You need to get this under control, and you also need to see how bad it is so you can understand your own responses and then take those moments to rest when you can. And that's what it really did. Like, there was a week when my husband was sick, so he was quarantined to his room, and I was dealing with all 3 children. And she wasn't sleeping, but I was actually keeping a sleep diary, so I knew how bad it was. So I kept the sleep diary already, just for 2 weeks. So you knew what the pattern was. You got the pattern. You knew you weren't sleeping. And then I realised what I needed to do was I needed to nap. So when this was before she was potty trained, so now she's potty trained, a bit more difficult because she's not obviously sleeping. It's a new thing. So when she sleeps, she pees. So you have to be really careful about her sleeping. But in this case, whenever she went down for a nap, I went down for a nap too. And it didn't matter that for a week the dishes were not done and the clothes were kind of in bags. They've been washed, but they were just in bags piled up around the house, and that the children's toys were everywhere. And no, I'm not. The floor needed hoovering. No, not dealing with it. Seriously not dealing with it. I seriously had to prioritize my emotional health, my spiritual well-being, the health, the interaction, the relationship with my kids over and above anything else, even health and safety in the house, like even tripping on toys. Like we had to live with it, and had to make the kids really a part of that process and saying, okay, Adana's gone down for sleep, you boys sit and watch something in quiet time, mummy's gonna sleep, because I was on my own, and what else was I gonna do? My husband was sick, what can I do? And I knew that was just going to be a really intense period. So I really am advocating, this is a longer video because I really wanted to talk and share with you the challenge of sleep deprivation, the challenge of how real it is, and really just explain, if you've ever felt like lonely and isolated, and I really pray that I've never made anyone feel like this when they're struggling with sleep deprivation. I've just been a listening ear. And if they've asked, then I've given advice, but I've accepted their position. If you've ever gone through sleep deprivation because of especially the people you love, which makes it doubly hard because you love them and you know that they're struggling, you know that the crying is not because they're just wicked. It's because they're struggling. They're struggling to sleep. They're struggling with night terrors, or they're struggling with nightmares, or they're uncomfortable for whatever reason, or their body doesn't produce melatonin, as my child didn't, is obviously not producing enough. And she's not sleeping perfectly. I'm still struggling with it, but at least the first 4 or 5 hours we're getting now, which is good. Keep a sleep diary for 2 weeks. Just try. If you miss a couple hours here or there, just think about it in the day. Try and jot down any notes. And a sleep diary is really simple. Did they wake up? How long were they up for? That's it, really. Was it, if you remember anything else, like it was a night terror, or they were crying, or they needed a drink, or it was food, or whatever it is, then write those things down. But really, just keep a track of, are they awake? Why are they awake? That's it. What time is it? Why? Because it will really help guide how you behave. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Sleep deprivation as a torture method used by small people to kill the adults that they live with, kill their relationships, kill their sense of normalcy, kill their sense of balance, emotional health and well-being. I don't want you to go through a bad time. And if you're struggling, please go see the doctor, go see a sleep specialist, speak to a friend who's been there, done that with difficult sleep children, and not even just to get advice sometimes, just to say, I can't cope. And just have someone hug you and say it'll be okay. I know that's difficult in this time, but it means the world. So yes, that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. That's my parental tip, if you will. Keep a sleep diary. I hope it helps you. God bless. Bye-bye.